Hello, everybody. Welcome to True Serial Live. I am your host, Jay, as always, and joining with me is Claire. How you doing, Claire?
I'm doing good. Happy Sunday.
Happy
Mm,
Sunday. Happy Mother's Day for
Yeah.
all the mothers out there.
Yes. Well, happy Mother's Day for everyone who's out there. It's going to be due. Oh, Jen, I'm sorry to hear that was on call for bad internet this time. Mm. Looks like
So,
they may have to attend after all.
well, that's okay. More for us.
That's right. Yeah.
So on this Mother's Day, we are going to be covering,
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Thanks.
probably two of the most sadistic serial killers I have
Mm-hmm.
ever researched and listened about.
Yes.
Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Nelson, also known as the Toolbox
Mm-hmm.
Killers. Ugh.
Listen, like, can I personally thank you for that?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
can you see the dripping sarcasm in my voice? Thank you very much for giving me this case for this weekend. Yes. Yeah. What a
Well,
thrill it's been. Raven, we need to talk. We need to, it's getting serious. It's getting
and for
Oh,
yeah,
God.
yes, Sandy, I do feel better. I slept for like 13 hours yesterday. It was crazy.
Oh,
So
I'm glad you're feeling better.
we are going to be reading from two different articles today. One is
Mhm.
the Murderpedia page on Roy Norris, and then the other one is I didn't put it in the description. That is my bad because I am lazy. I will put it in the chat if anybody wants to read along.
Yeah.
There
Oh,
you go.
yeah. I was going to say, can I just drop it? Because I see
Yeah.
Juju says she doesn't know anything. All right. Which one did
Yeah.
you do? Okay. I'll drop the other one
The
for
Murderpedia
my.
one. Yeah.
Yep. You go ahead and start.
So we're gonna cover a couple things from the Murderpedia and then we're gonna go over the other articles. So excuse me. Now mind you, this case is extremely disturbing. So those of you that have issues with torture, um this may not be one for you, so just be aware of that. But like I said, we do cover the serial killers. We do not
Right.
um shy away from them. So,
No,
but like I said,
I
this
mean
is probably
it is a true it's a serial killer channel, and we
yeah.
so yeah,
So,
yeah.
now I will warn everyone, because you may hear some things as we're reading and we talking along. There is because it may come up. There is a transcript of their last murder, the audio recording that they recorded that is out there. We will not be reading from that because it is extremely
Mhm.
disturbing. If you guys are interested, um, to read that transcript, because you can't find the actual audio for it, but you can get the transcript. Just type in Toolbox Murder Transcript and it's all over the place. But do not read
Mhm.
it if you are faint of heart because it is
Yes.
extremely disturbing.
There are pieces of it in the Sue Coletta document in the link that he first dropped, but it's not a lot. But it
Yeah.
does give you some idea of what you'll be looking at if you go look for it. Thank goodness that audio is out there. That should not be out there. I'm
Yeah.
telling you. Like if it's what we read, that would be so disrespectful, I would say, to the victim.
Mm.
Absolutely. Overboard.
Juju says I'd like to note that the quote on that article is wrong. Cats kill for pleasure too. Only two creatures on the planet do that, man and cats. Well,
Okay.
they're not
Yeah.
the only ones because killer whales will do the same thing. Otters will do the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Otters like to gang up and kill for
yeah.
pleasure. It's true.
Chimpanzees have been known to kill for pleasure. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Ooh. But I do appreciate the quote though, Juju. I
yeah.
mean, I like it.
So we're gonna start off. So Southern California has something for everyone. A temperature climate year round is a boon to agriculture, industry, and tourism. Mountains and deserts beckon hikers, while beaches lure surfers and sunbathers. Farms and citrus groves employ underpaid migrant workers from Mexico. Tourists head south, seeking adventures in the streets of Tijuana, Tecate, and Mexicali.
Hmm.
The Hollywood Dream Factory devours wannabe stars. Money leaves trail of stench on Rodeo Drive. The darker side, of course, is unmentioned in the guidebooks and brochures. As always, crime goes hand in hand with affluence. Drugs flow across the borders. Prostitutes work the streets near the studios of Disney and Universal. Runways sleep in culverts, alleyways, or in seedy trash pads such as the Hollywood's notorious Hotel Hell. Street gangs and dealers transform streets into shooting galleries. There are also the predators, aside
Mm.
from the ones in gold chains and limousines. Southern Cali is psychocentral. The region has earned its grim reputation the hard way, producing a full 10% of the world's identified serial killers between 1950 and 2000. That should tell you a lot.
Yeah, we're not talking just the United States. They said the world.
The
Okay,
world.
the world.
10%
Right.
of the world's serial killers from 1950 to 2000 come from
Mhm.
Southern California. Predictably, though, the killers are now celebrities with nicknames tailor-made for the tabloids and their inferior cousin, the television. The Night Stalker, the I-5 Killer, the Skid Row Slasher, the Hillside Strangler, the Freeway Killer, the Korean Town Slasher, the Candlelight Killer, the Southside Slayer, the Trash Bag Killer, the Sunset Slayer, and the Orange Coast Killer, just to name a few. That's just a few.
Just such catchy names, too.
So no studies have explained a disproportionate number of serial killers in Southern California, but some of the answers are the obvious as talentless Hollywood nymphet. The first is population. Hunters go where there is game, and Southern California offers an abundance of prey. Los Angeles' population stood at 3.6 million at the turn of the new century, with another 1.2 million in San Diego alone. Overall, the sprawl from Santa Barbara to the Baja border totals about 20 million people. Innumerable others live off the record: runaways, illegal immigrants, the homeless, fugitives, and those who simply have fallen through the cracks. Among those 20 million inhabitants and others yet unrecognized, a predator can find an abundance of targets of opportunity. These include hitchhikers, prostitutes, fringe dwellers, unattended children, and the forgotten elderly. Many won't be missed. If their bodies are recovered from a shallow grave, a highway culvert, or a garbage dumpster, who will care? Mobility is key. Southern Cali invented the automobile cult. The population is large, but the density is low. A teeming highway system, for example, has made Los Angeles the global capital of bank robbery. In a predictable irony, the predator named Mark Ray Edwards helped to build the freeways, slaughtering children from 1953 to 1969,
Oh,
planting their bodies overnight in soil that he would pave with asphalt in the morning.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
By the time Edwards hanged himself on San Quentin's death row, the next generation had already been cruising the freeways in style. Their names are nightmarish legends: Harvey Gatman, Thor Christensen, Kenneth Bianchi, and Angelo Bruno, Patrick Kearney, William Bonin, and Vernon Butts, Fernando Cota, Randy Kraft, and the Manson family.
Mm.
Two of the worst are now all but forgotten today, except for the families of the victims and some cops. These slayers never had nicknames because the reporters never learned of them until they were in custody. Yet, one has selected a nickname. He signs his prison fan mail, Pliers.
Oh, so I'm up. Bigger than Manson. Let's talk about Pliers, huh? Lawrence Sigmund Bittaker was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on September 27, 1940. Mr. and Mrs. George Bittaker adopted the infant, who would be known as Lawrence shortly after he was born. George's work in aircraft factories occasioned frequent moves for the family, from Pennsylvania to Florida, then to Ohio, and finally California. Something of that rootless childhood stuck with Lawrence, and he dropped out of school in 1957 after several brushes with police and juvenile authorities. Soon after dropping out of high school, Bittaker was arrested in Long Beach for auto theft, hit and run, and evading arrest. That bust earned him a trip to the California Youth Authority, where he remained until he turned 19.
Yeah, so real quick, Juju asked if they were born or moved there. They moved there.
Yeah, I did. I wrote.
Yeah,
I told
I know we caught that, but I want to make sure if somebody didn't catch that. And weather does have play into hunting grounds. You will find that the better the weather, the more hunting there will be, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Cassandra said Claire's reading. No offense, Jay just does something. That's all right.
Hey, thanks for the compliment, Aaron.
And then Aaron says Claire's got her good voice on tonight.
Okay, well, I hope it stays. I hope it hangs with you. You
Yeah.
ready?
Yep, go
Yeah.
ahead.
All right.
I just
Within
wanted
days.
to touch on those
Yeah.
real quick. So go ahead.
Okay. Just suck in your breath. I'll stop. If you need a paragraph, so you need time for the chat. Within days of his California parole, Bidiger was picked up by FBI agents in Louisiana, charged with violating the Interstate Motor Vehicle Theft Act. Convicted of that charge in August 1959, he was sentenced to serve 18 months at a federal reformatory in Oklahoma. His behavior there soon earned Bidiker a transfer to the U.S. Medical Center at Springfield, Missouri, where doctors released him after he had served 2/3 of his sentence. Arrested next for a Los Angeles robbery in December 1960, Bidiger was convicted in May 1961, slapped with an intermediate sentence of 1 to 15 years in state prison. A 1961 psychiatric examination found Bidiger to be manipulative and having considerable concealed hostility, despite superior intelligence. He was diagnosed as borderline psychotic and basically paranoid. The following year, a second psychiatrist noted Bidiker's poor control of impulsive behavior. These diagnoses notwithstanding, he was paroled in late 1963 after serving barely 1/6 of his possible maximum sentence.
Now, one thing we do want to know before you go on, when they say that he was superior intelligence, he was examined an estimated IQ of 135.
Wow. Well,
mind you, Einstein
yeah.
was, I think, 141.
And now that is yeah, I was going to say that's on the old tests where it went with those the numbers. Now they test them different, but back then 135. That's like whew.
Yeah, that was really good. Like I said, under that scale, Einstein was rated to like 141. So I mean,
Okay.
Lawrence was a very smart dude.
Pliers thinks outside the box. That's for sure. Oh Lord. Oh, this is gonna be fun. May I thank you again, Jay? Oh boy. Okay. Freedom never seemed to agree with Larry Bidiker. 2 months after his conditional release, he was jailed again for parole violation and suspicion of robbery. Another parole violation sent him back to prison in October of 1964. Interviewed by a psychiatrist in 1966, Bidiker confessed that stealing made him feel important, then curiously added that his crimes occurred under circumstances that were not totally my fault. Another diagnosis of borderline psychosis was recorded, and authorities released him yet again, only to again see another parole violation in June 1967. 1 month later, Bidiker was tagged for theft and leaving the scene of a hit-and-run accident. Convicted on those charges, he drew another 5-year sentence, but he was paroled after serving less than 3 years in April 1970. Arrested for burglary and parole violations again in March 1971, he was convicted in both counts that October, receiving an additional sentence of 6 months to 15 years. The California prison system at that time was in such disarray that it was hardly surprising that Bidiker was freed 3 years later in 1974. His next crime began as simple shoplifting, shoving a steak down the front of his pants in a supermarket, but it escalated to attempted murder in the parking lot when Bidiker stabbed an employee who tried to stop him. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Robert Markman examined Bidiker before trial and rejected the earlier findings of borderline psychosis. He branded Bidiker a classic sociopath. As Markman explained that term later in his memoir, Alone with the Devil, from 1989, the diagnosis simply meant that Bidiker was incapable of learning to play by the rules. He would never learn by experience, and he would just keep butting his head against the barriers of acceptable behavior. In short, he was a hopeless case, beyond any known treatment or rehabilitation. Dr. Markman also warned that Bittaker was bound to escalate his criminal behavior, moving on to more serious crimes. He was a highly dangerous man with no internal controls over his impulses, a man who could kill without hesitation or remorse. Bittaker later reinforced that surmise, telling a cellmate that someday he planned to be bigger than Manson. Prison psychiatrists concurred with Markman. A 1977 jailhouse evaluation found Bittaker more than likely to commit new crimes upon his release. A year later, in July 1978, another psychiatrist dubbed Bittaker's a sophisticated psychopath whose prospects for successful parole were guarded at best. Again, the warnings were ignored, and Bittaker was released in November 1978, but not before he made a special friend.
Now, yeah. So this is another one. Because remember, I can't say remember because I haven't covered it with you guys. The same thing basically happened with a lot of serial killers that were released that were in psychiatric care. A lot of psychiatrists is like, don't release them, and they did anyways. One of the main things with Ed Kemper was they told him the psychiatrist said, do not release him into his mother's care. He will commit more crimes.
Mhm.
And that's what they did. They released him into his mother's care. And look what happened.
Well, look at this. This is like, I'm reading it. I'm going, the making of a serial killer. Thank you very much, California prison system.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. How many times does the psychiatrist have to say, oh, looky here, we got a big one? Like, and they just like, off he goes. He got 15 years. He was out in what? A year?
Yeah.
And then 2? And then
Six-
he's on his
six-
third
yeah.
third parole violation and gets out in only a sixth of his time.
Yeah. Well, here's another thing too. We talk about nature versus nurture, and in the case with Lawrence Bittaker, it's nature. There's nothing in his past that would suggest that he was abused or had accidents or anything like that in his past. It's all he was just born that way.
Reading all of that, I understand why they have legislation that prevents people from suing the prison system, these people, because the victims that happened later, they should have tied up California in suits for their whole natural lives. I'm serious. Like that is just so offensive to me. 1/6 of a 15-year sentence on a third parole violation.
Mhm.
It's not like he didn't show you he wasn't gonna do right. Oh God, this is heartbreaking.
Well, like I said, he is one of the, when they talk about nature versus nurture, he's one of those where
Mm.
or nature, it takes an effect. But if you look at, say, somebody like Ed Kemper or Ted Bundy, theirs was pretty much nurture.
Listen,
So
yeah, no, this guy was proving he was going to get worse. The psychiatrist actually said he's going to get worse.
yeah, sophisticated psychopath.
So if somebody tests as a sophisticated psychopath, why are they not locked up in a mental facility away from the public for the rest of to serve their sentence? Get them, if you want them out of the jail system, fine. Release them to an institution. And, why let them out on the public?
Yeah,
God.
But mind you, this was 78 too. I mean, we didn't know as much as we do now. Somebody like that now, they'd have him locked up. They, or highly watched type of thing, halfway house type of situation where he's continually monitored all the time if he is released, just because of these situations. So now we are going to look at Roy Lewis Norris. So the partner in these toolbox killing. This is Lawrence's special friend, as noted before. So Roy Lewis Norris was born in Greenlee, Colorado on February 2nd, in 1948. Unlike Bittaker, Norris lived in his hometown till he was 17. when he dropped out of school and then joined the Navy. He was stationed in San Diego, but in 1969, he spent 4 months in Vietnam. Though he never saw combat, he did see drugs. Marijuana was his drug of choice and was widely available. Back in Southern California in November of 1969, Norris attacked a female driver in downtown San Diego. He forced his way into her car and attempted rape. It only took 3 months for Norris to get arrested again. Free on bail, pending trial for attacking the motorist, Norris knocked on another San Diego woman's door. He asked if he could use her telephone. When the woman refused, he tried to break in through a living room window, then ran back to the kitchen. Breaching a window there, he finally entered the house, but the police had arrived before he could harm his intended victim.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, the Navy had seen enough out of Norris. He received an administrative discharge for psychological problems after he was diagnosed with having a severe schizoid personality. Now, back in, mind you, in 1969, that was a huge variety of it's not as well separated as it is now. So that severe schizoid personality could have meant a numerous amount of things. So still awaiting disposition on his previous assault case, Norris attacked another young woman in May of 1970 on a campus in San Diego State College. He tackled the student from behind, clubbed her with a stone, and then slammed her head repeatedly into the concrete sidewalk. This time, the charge was assault with a deadly weapon, and it was finally enough to take Roy Norris off the streets. So we thought. He was confined to a Atascadero State Hospital as a mentally disordered sex offender. Now, anybody recognize that name? Atascadero State Hospital was also the hospital Ed Kemper spent his time from 15 to 21 after he had killed his grandparents. So, just little fact out there for you.
Little tidbits.
Little tidbit there for you.
Of the gory kind.
He spent 5 years there before being released on probation. Officially, he was described as someone who would bring no further danger to others. Yeah, that was wrong. Excuse me. So Norris proved the prediction wrong 3 months later. Oh, what a shock. In Redondo Beach. Cruising the streets on a motorcycle, he spied a 27-year-old woman walking home from a restaurant after a quarrel with her boyfriend. Norris stopped to offer her a ride, which she declined. Undetermined by the rejection, Norris leapt off his bike and attacked the woman, strangling her into semi-consciousness with her own scarf.
Whoa.
Dazed, she did not resist as Norris dragged her behind a nearby hedge and then raped her. Police were unable to act because of the vague description of her attacker, but 1 month later, the woman saw Norris again. She memorized the license number. Convicted of forcible rape, Norris was shipped off to California's men's colony in San Luis Obispo.
That at least was good to hear.
Yep.
That they at least tried him on that, even though she testified later and that went through. Because back then that was hard to do. So I'm glad she got that done.
It could have been worse. The colony is easy time as California prisons go. A cakewalk compared to Soledad, Folsom, and San Quentin. Norris also met a friend at the colony who would change his life. Reminiscing years later, Norris would claim that Larry Bittaker twice saved his life at San Luis Obispo. The experience bound him to Bittaker, although the details are vague. The prison code demanded that Norris follow any plan Bittaker devised, no matter how bizarre.
So it happened in jail. He protected him, so to speak, from something, and then became his property, so to speak.
Pretty much. You know, I saved you. Your life is now mine, type of thing.
And I'm a psychopath, a sociopath.
I'm a nut job.
Because the psychiatrist said so, and I'm well on my way to showing you the wrong side of the tracks here for sure. Oh my God, that's funny.
It helped, of course, that they shared a near identical fantasies of domination, rape, and torture. Next time a woman fell into his clutches, Bittaker confided he would kill her afterwards, a surefire method of evading punishment. In fact, he thought it might be fun to play a game, selecting one victim for each teen year, 13 through 19, and see how long each victim could be kept alive and screaming.
What?
Bittaker was paroled in November 15th to 78, returning to L.A., where he found work as a machinist. Norris was freed exactly 2 months later on January 15th of 79. He moved in with his mother at an LA trailer park and used his Navy training to find work as an electrician. Bittaker wrote to Norris in February of 79 and arranged a rendezvous at a cheap downtown hotel. Over drinks, they renewed their prison friendship and repeated their dark desires. Spring was coming to Southland. It was nearly hunting season.
Oh, those one-liners are getting me.
So, yeah.
Let me thank you again for this joyous.
So now we're gonna jump over to the other article. And
Okay,
this is now, mind you, this is going to be pretty graphic.
Okay, so you want me to take the beginning?
How far? I can start it out.
All right. Yeah.
So.
I'm not. I won't come in until it says Norris and Bittaker. No, not even then. Wait, I'm not coming in until. Oh no! I can do it. I can do it. I'm only joking with you.
All right. So Halloween night, 1979. 16-year-old Shirley Lynette Ledford made one fatal mistake, trusting the two men who offered her a ride. 48 hours later, a jogger found her naked remains on a random lawn in Sunland, California. Her mutilated corpse lay in an ivy patch. Now, Shirley Ledford is the last victim, and she is also one that the tape we were talking about earlier was made on.
Right. Which just give you a warning, there are snippets in Jay's narration, just snippets.
But we'll try and keep those snippets to not so graphic. So, the article does say if you at all you're squeamish, you may want to stop reading because the following is a true account. So, if you guys, I'm just giving you a warning. This is about to get extremely graphic.
That goes,
but we'll try to keep YouTube. Yeah, we'll try to keep it as less graphically as possible. So,
but they're here for true crime, and this is offensive true crime. And we've always said that when we work together, right, Jim? We're going to do the real deal. We'll try to give you a heads up, but we both believe the language is important and what happened is important to the case. And
so it all started in 1977 when 29-year-old Roy met 36-year-old Lawrence while incarcerated at the men's colony in San Luis Obispo. We know all that part, so we're going to skip a little bit here. So 2 years later, after they had teamed up outside and bought a 1977 GM cargo van, which they nicknamed the Murder Mac.
And the Pliers, Murder Mac. I mean, the other one didn't have a nickname, right? Like he didn't have one.
No, he didn't.
So poor Roy didn't even get a nickname.
Well, it's because Larry gave himself the nickname.
This is true. Okay.
So from February to June of 79, the menacing duo picked up more than 20 female hitchhikers, not to assault, but to practice luring girls into the van. They also used the time to search for desolated locales. In April, they discovered a secluded fire road in San Gabriel Mountains. With crowbar in hand, Bittaker snapped the lock on the gate and the fire road and placed it with his own. Now all they needed was a victim. On the 24th of June, 16-year-old Lucinda Lynn Schaefer left the Presbyterian church meeting in Redondo Beach. She couldn't have known the evil that had awaited her. After Bittaker and Norris had finished constructing the bed in the rear of the van, beneath which they placed tools, clothes, and a cooler filled with beer and soda, they drove to the beach around 7:45. Lucinda was walking down the side street and Bittaker remarked, "There's a cute little blonde." But their first attempt to entice her in the van was unsuccessful. Bribes of marijuana, beer, and a ride home didn't work, so they drove past her and parked alongside a driveway, where Norris exited the vehicle and slid open the side door. He leaned into the van with his head and shoulders obscured from view. As Lucinda passed by, she exchanged a few words with Norris before he pounced, dragging her into the van. Let me know when you want to take over.
I'll do it now if you want. I can get through it. Yeah, I can do it. Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
All right. That moment sealed her fate. With bound wrists and ankles, her mouth duct tape, Lucinda had no way to defend herself. Despite her initial scream, the only thing she could control was denying these monsters the satisfaction of witnessing her pain. She displayed a magnificent state of self control and composed acceptance of the conditions of which she had no control, claimed Bittaker in a written statement. She shed no tears, offered no resistance, and expressed no great concern for her safety. I guess she knew what was coming. With the radio volume at full blast, Bittaker drove to their prearranged spot in the mountains. Norris remained in the back of the van with Lucinda. Once on the fire road, the two men took turns raping Lucinda while the other took a walk. The only thing Lucinda asked for was a second to pray before Norris attempting to manually strangulate her. 45 seconds in, and then he became so freaked out by her protruding eyes, he ran to the front bumper of the van and vomited. But Bittaker was unfazed. He wrapped his vice-gripped fingers around her neck, her body slowly wilting to the ground. When the convulsions started, Bittaker snaked a wire coat hanger around Lucinda's throat and squeezed it, too tight with pliers, an act both men would repeat again and again. Norris and Bittaker rolled Lucinda's dead body in a plastic shower curtain and tossed her into a canyon, where they expected wild animals to cover their heinous act. A similar cycle occurred. A similar cycle occurred 2 weeks later when the murderous pair spotted an 18-year-old Andrea Joy Hall hitchhiking along the Pacific Coast Highway. After raping and torturing Andrea, they forced her to pose for Polaroids. Sheer terror shone in her eyes as she pleaded for her life. Neither man listened. Instead, they drove an ice pick through her skull, strangled her, and then tossed her lifeless remains off a cliff.
Yeah. So
Mm.
now,
Mm.
from I don't know if I don't think this article goes too much into it,
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't really go into the trial or anything. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Norris would say that he and all the girls that they killed, he actually only killed one of them. Bittaker was the one that killed.
Mm-hmm.
He said all, but like I think it was one or two. I don't remember which one.
Yeah.
But he did everything else with him. It was
Mm-hmm.
basically his Norris. His fantasy wasn't the killing part of it. His was just the
Yeah.
rape and the torture.
Mm.
Bittaker's was the one that included the killing.
He
So
enjoyed watching life leave their body.
yeah.
The other one couldn't get there, right? Yeah.
So
He,
it wasn't so it wasn't when I first heard about this that as he tried to strangle her and then he couldn't do it and he ran and vomited, that didn't surprise me because that was not part of his fantasy. That was all Bittaker's fantasy. Now
mm-hmm.
Bittaker he hit with the how did he put it in another podcast I had heard. They said
Mm-hmm.
he said the strangling him with my bare hands took too long. That's why I went with a coat hanger and a pair of pliers.
Right, that's where the nickname came from because he
Yeah.
kept that technique the whole time, So there, um, Juju, you're not alone because as I was reading that, that's what I was thinking. Like, what were they playing on like the stereo?
Well,
What's the music
you
in the background of the van?
yeah,
Like,
you figure
upstairs?
this is
Yeah,
79, so I'm guessing,
yeah.
like Raven said 70s rock, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They were in Southern California, so it could have been like beach.
I don't know. I'm thinking the Doors. I don't know. Like I
Yeah.
could just hear it in the background, like a documentary.
I'm thinking
This
Beach
is not the.
Boys,
Oh no,
because
Beach Boys.
it is Pacific Coast Highway too, So
True,
we're
true.
talking surfer, we're talking San Diego and Pacific Coast Highway. So I mean, but it could have been disco too. I mean, this is the 79,
Uh,
you know.
I
So
like. I'm just. Yeah. It's hmm.
yeah. And the ice pick, there was a little caveat I wanted to add with that too. Bittaker said that he had used the ice pick because he wanted to see how far he could push it into her skull before she died.
Right, because this is why they're called the toolbox killers.
Yeah.
Before they even started, they got a whole kit there. They got a whole toolbox full of stuff that they might use or might not at any time. Plus, their cooler of beer and drinks, and
Yeah.
you know, uh, so
So
they were prepared. They definitely We're on a mission.
So I'll take over here. So on
Yep.
September 3rd, Jackie Doris Gilman and Jacqueline Lee Lamp waited at the bus stop near Hermosa Beach. Luring the two girls in the van with marijuana and a free ride worked remarkably well, until the girls noticed Bittaker wasn't heading towards the Pacific Coast Highway. Rather, he drove towards the San Gabriel Mountains. When 13-year-old Jacqueline slid the door open, Norris slammed her over the head with a pre-filled bag of lead weights, knocking her momentarily unconscious. He attempted to bind and gag 15-year-old Jackie Gilliam, but Jacqueline regained composure and again tried to escape. Sadly, she was no match for Norris, who wrenched her arm behind her back and dragged her back into the van. Meanwhile, Bittaker, noting the struggle was in full view of the witnesses, slid the shifter in the park, climbed in back, and sucker punched Jacqueline in the face, then assisted Norris unbinding and gagging the two girls. When they finally arrived at the San Gabriel Mountains, Jackie and Jacqueline were held captive for nearly 2 full days, repeatedly raped and forced to pose for pornographic Polaroids. Bittaker tape recorded the first time he'd raped young Jackie, telling her to feel free to express your pain. At the trial, Norris claimed he buried the cassette in a nearby cemetery, but it has never been recovered. The poor girls were tortured in unimaginable ways, including having their breasts punctured with an ice pick. Norris also tore off one of Jackie's nipples with a pair of pliers. Even death didn't come swiftly. Bittaker drilled an ice pick into both of Jackie's ears before strangling her to death. He beat Jacqueline with a sledgehammer, strangled her for fun, beat her again, and then strangled her to death. The Toolbox killer tossed both bodies over the embankment into the California chaparral.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Right.
Aaron, what did you say?
Yeah, he's got a good question for you there.
Hillside Stranglers have the same type of dynamic. I thought the Hillside Strangler was just one person, but it was attributed to two different people, but they didn't work together. Because I think it was two people who had the nickname the Hillside Strangler, but I don't remember if they worked together or not. Sandy said
it's the same. That it is sadistic. It's just terrible. Do you want me to take the next one?
Yeah, give me just a second here though. And Sandy says, and to think, I was barely 20 when I hit LA in 1980. Only stayed 3 weeks before I moved north to San Francisco.
I'm glad you moved. There's a hot mess too. There. There were statistics there that were not good. so I'm glad you moved on. Yeah.
You can take over from the grave.
Yep, from the grave, Shirley Lynette Ledford, whom I mentioned at the beginning of this post, ignited the strongest emotional response in the jurors in the courtroom audience. The prosecutor played 17 grueling minutes of a tape recording which showed the amount of terror Shirley endured before her death. The transcript, of which you can find here, but before you do, I need to caution you, this isn't easy reading, nor is it easy to listen to the first few minutes of the accompanying video, where Shirley's blood-curdling screams carry through closed courtroom doors. This sweet young girl endured masochistic behavior at the hands of pure evil, so proceed at your own risk. Some say 16-year-old Shirley Ledford accepted a ride on that fateful Halloween night because she recognized Bittaker from a restaurant where she'd worked as a part-time waitress. Apparently, Bittaker frequented the establishment. Moments after Shirley climbed inside the van, Bittaker drove to a secluded side street where Norris drew a knife. He then bound and gagged Shirley with the barricade tape. The nightmare had begun.
Now, before I do want to point something out here. Shirley here is going to, because I don't know, I'm kind of briefly just read over this earlier. She is going to basically everything they've done to the girls before, they're almost exactly going to do to her. So this is a culmination of everything they did is going to, So like I said, it's hours upon hour. So,
I can do,
well, hang on. Cassandra said, can you still hear the recording? I've looked to see if you could find the recording, but I have never found it.
You
And
can find the transcript of it though easily.
she
Yeah.
says that she had here on her page that she had part of it, but I never found it either. So, but I'm
It
not
must.
gonna look for it
Yeah.
because I really don't want to listen to it. As
It
much as
might have
I
been
can,
wiped. Yeah.
as much as I can handle things like this that it doesn't bother me. It's just I don't think it's necessary. I've read the transcript. I don't need to hear. So yeah, I've looked for it, but I've never looked for it hard enough to actually try and find
Mhm.
it. So
Yeah, but I know there's plenty of the transcript there where you can read word for word what it
yeah,
says.
and
Yeah,
like I
just
said, the
yeah. Mhm.
transcript itself is just disturbing enough to read.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
All right, you ready?
yep,
Mhm.
go ahead.
All right, Bittaker traded places with Norris, who drove aimlessly for over an hour as Bittaker tormented Shirley, ordering her to scream louder. What's the matter? Don't you like to scream? On tape, Shirley pleaded with Bittaker, "No, don't touch me." To which Bittaker replied, "Scream as loud as you wish," and then bludgeoned her with a sledgehammer, punched her breasts in order to beat them back into her chest, as Bittaker raped and sodomized Shirley. He tortured her with pliers, doing God only knows what. At trial, Norris later described he'd heard screams, constant screams, from the rear of the van. The audio recording is no longer available.
Yeah, see, that's
Mhm,
yeah. That looks like they
mhm.
pulled it.
And quote, "We've all heard women scream in horror films. Still, we know that no one is really screaming. Why? Simply because an actress can't produce some sounds that convince us that something vile and heinous is happening. If you ever heard that tape, there is just no possible way that you would not begin crying and trembling. I doubt you could listen to more than a full 60 seconds of it. Serial killer, Roy Norris."
Now that is from one of the guys that did this to her.
And he can't listen to it.
Yeah,
So,
and he said, "I doubt
hmm
you could listen to a full 60 seconds of it without crying and trembling."
hmm well, uh,
So, go ahead.
keep in mind, Norris had an IQ of 135. So even though he tried to downplay his involvement during his testimony, he still switched places with Bittaker, taking turns torturing and raping this young girl. Norris was one who switched on the tape recorder, a sick, twisted individual who wanted to memorialize his own sadistic treatment of Shirley. Make no mistake, both men were equally vicious. They had no empathy for the victims of their families. In my opinion, Norris deserved equal punishment, but he cut a deal by testifying for the prosecutor. Hmm.
See, that always bugs me. And I know you read a lot of
Mm-hmm.
that type
Yeah,
of stuff.
yeah.
It's the getting a lesser sentence. You took equal parts in what happened to this girl, but since you
Mm-hmm.
decided you're gonna flip and you know rat out Bittaker, we're gonna give you a lesser sentence than he's got. No,
Mm-hmm.
the two sons of bitches, they both did this to her. They both should get the final. They both
Mm-hmm.
should get what's coming to them. One should not get over on what the other one.
Yeah. No, I'm saying they should. I see it a lot. I mean, deals are made all the time because they want to get them both, and they fear that like they're going to be if they actually testified against each other that the other one did it, it would get very muddy in the courtroom, and it would be very hard to separate who did what in whatever. So once you do have somebody step up that is actually complicit in the crime, was there, saw everything that happened, of course you want that testimony. You want that testimony to seal the deal. But do you have to make the deal so sweet? I mean, they should actually just be given the glory of they don't have to stand trial. It's not going to be as uncomfortable. Maybe a placement in a different type of prison, but to give them much less of a sentence or not have them punished to the same degree is a little distasteful to me. Their cooperation should be recorded as far as their parole. Their cooperation should be recorded as far as their privileges in the prison and how they're treated, but not in their sentencing. What they did was still what they did, you know? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm. That bothers me. Mm. Where are we back in the van?
Yeah.
Back in the van, Shirley saw Norris grab the sledgehammer and screamed. Oh no. Norris struck her in the left elbow, shattering the bone. But he didn't stop there. Shirley begged him not to hit her again. In return, Norris struck the same broken elbow 25 more times. When he finally stopped, he glared at Shirley, who was sobbing and shaking and terrified. What are you sniveling about? He said. After 2 solid hours of unimaginable torture, Norris finally killed Shirley by strangling her with a coat hanger and tightening the wire with pliers. Bittaker opted to pose her body on a random lawn in Sunland to gauge the public's reaction. Norris agreed. So, under the cover of darkness, Bittaker played out as Norris posed Shirley's mutilated remains on an ivy patch. Not wanting to waste his last chance to humiliate this poor girl, he wrenched open her legs.
You can skip
Death.
that line and go to the next one. That's just her opinion.
Mm-hmm. The autopsy revealed extensive blunt force trauma to the face, head, breast, left elbow, with her obercranon, the bony tip of the elbow, sustaining multiple fractures. Torn genitalia and rectum caused in part by Bittaker raping her with the pliers. Her left hand bore a puncture wound and a deep slash mark scarred the finger of her right hand. At trial, Bittaker claimed the tape recording was nothing but a threesome, but added that toward the very end, Shirley Ledford pleaded for death.
So investigators eventually found the remains of Jacqueline Lee Hemp and Jack Doris Gilman in the San Gabriel Mountains. The bodies of Lucinda Schaefer and Andrea Hall still remain undiscovered. As for Bittaker, an initial execution date was set for December of 1989, which he appealed. The U.S. Supreme Court upheld the decision, set a new date for execution of July 23rd, 91, and again he appealed. Only this time, in July of 91, the court granted a stay. As of 2017, he remained on death row in San Quentin. Roy Norris, his parole board denied his request for release in 2009. Nonetheless, he will still have served his 45-year prison term in 2019. I do have an update on those two. Go ahead.
He could have got out then, right?
Yeah. 45-year would have had him released in 2019.
You got the update? Because my stomach just hit.
I do have an update on Roy Nelson and Bittaker. So, okay. Roy Norris. I keep calling him Nelson. Lawrence Bittaker is no longer alive. He died December 13, 2009 in San Quentin Prison, where he was still on death row. So he did pass away. Roy Nelson also was denied parole in 2009, and he died on February 24th, 2020, after being transferred from the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility. Before he died, though, Norris began to change his story, claiming he was under the influence of drugs when the murders were committed. He said, I spoke to Roy for 5 years, too, but when you talked to him, he said he blacked out on drugs during the whole crimes. Now, during the trial, he actually testified and gave very, very accurate details of what they were doing throughout the crime, so that his story he was now trying to perpetrate that he blacked out on drugs is a total lie.
Yeah, because he conducted himself physically the whole time, and he gave testimony to actually every step that they took. You know, nice try. Like, what does he think he's going to accomplish with it? I guess he thinks he's going to get a parole. He's going to get out. Oh, all
right. One of the reasons, and it didn't quite cover it there, that the reason they put her on the lawn was because they weren't getting any attention for the ones that they did get killed. So it was like, look what we can do. We can do this and nobody will ever catch us. Well, what happened is how they got caught is somebody seen them, caught them putting the body on the lawn. And it was early mornings. It was like 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. But I think if I remember right, somebody was out for their morning run and recognized the van at the driveway. And when the body was found, they told the cops, hey, this van was here at about that time.
That's cool. That their actual need for attention to take it farther is what
Mhm.
got them like caught, as it should. Mm, well, wow. Yeah. Mm,
So,
mm,
want to touch up on something. Aaron says the Hillside Stranglers were cousins and worked together because I think one motivated the other
mm-hmm.
from lesser crimes to murder. I might have to look into that because I thought the Hillside Stranglers were just two different people. I didn't realize they were related.
There's I don't know how you keep all the stranglers separate.
Oh,
Like
it
there's
is
so
hard.
many.
It
It
is,
is like
yeah. The
there's like
Boston
they're named
Strangler, the
at
Hillside Stranglers.
they're
Yeah,
named after all these roads and stuff and areas too, like Green
yeah,
River. I can't. And then when they changed their names, like wasn't the Green River killer like renamed like several different times?
yeah. The
Like
Green River Killer actually became what we know now as the Night Stalker.
okay, so like how do you keep? I can't keep track of it.
Because it's what I do. But
It's
I will
what
tell
he
you,
does. It's his gift. It's his
I
talent.
will
Yeah.
I will tell you though, a lot of times names will somebody will ask me
Oh.
names on somebody or and
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to go look real quick and they go, okay, it's this one. Um
Mm-hmm. Well,
Autistic
uh,
Sausage, they found the recording, it's on YouTube. I don't know how, and no, I'm not gonna go
I
look
know
for it.
it's okay. You can shoot me a link either privately or in Discord message, and I'll make it available to anybody that wants it. Um,
You're
Not that
huge.
I'm gonna
Yeah, I'm
listen
not
to
gonna
it, but
either.
hmm
Like I said, I've read
but
the transcript. I am
but
not gonna listen to the tapes.
I do understand those that want to hear it because of the our fascination with crime, the legal system, and why we listen to these cases in the first
Mhm.
place. I can understand why they do if they want to. That is their choice. We just want to put a warning on it. That's all. That's
Yeah.
But thank you, Autistic Shield. Well, it's pretty cool. I'll bet you it's from the court case that they have the snippet from it from in
They
our
had
YouTube
somebody in the
video.
chat mentioned it earlier. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Juju had said that imagine being in that on that jury listening to that.
Right. And
Um
the juries do get traumatized by these kind of cases. I
yeah.
can imagine. I would not want to hear all of these, and try to stay neutral and hear only um try to base everything on evidence. You must have some type of emotional response to this kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about that one tape, but they had
Mm-hmm.
multiple tapes. It wasn't just the one. And they had all the Polaroids. So it was a
Mm-hmm.
matter of for me what it came down to in their sentencing, it had to have come down to who's going to get the worst sentence and who did the most stuff.
Right. Well.
Because they're both guilty. The tapes show that both of them were guilty.
Mm-hmm.
The photos prove that both of them are guilty. Now it's just a matter of
Mm-hmm.
who is the worst of the two.
Yeah. I hear. I hear you, Aaron. I use Google a lot, and because especially for the older stuff, because when I'm following a current case, I keep an active file, and I just keep adding to it every day, every other day, during the week, and keep up on it. But once that's closed and it's gone, like when like Nexium, right, Jay? When it
Hmm.
finally got away, that thing was I'm not kidding. It was like 8 inches thick, the stuff I had on Nexium because it had been years. And Jay and I did a series on it with hereticals in cults and conspiracies. And I finally got to toss that away. And I mean, I literally threw it in the garbage, like all that, all that research, all of everything. I just couldn't deal with it anymore because it's all on Google anyway. Like you can get it. But I won't remember all the details now, even though it was 8 inches thick and a big part of my life for like 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah, I
Almost every
have
day.
with me a lot of times I know these stories and I know the things that happen, but
Mm-hmm.
to get the actual details, I actually have to go back in and
Mm-hmm.
read some stuff for everything to kick back in. And as I'm reading, like I showed tonight, um, that I will remember things
Mm-hmm.
more as I'm talking about it. It's just the way
Mm-hmm.
it's my Rolodex in my brain works.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Oh, that's a good question. You know what? I kind of agree with this sentiment.
yeah,
Like, how do you decide who's worse when you got pairs of killers? You can't. It's really who's going to turn on who to get the testimony because Aaron's right. You don't want either one of them walking. You don't want to double not guilty because they're actually muddying the waters with their testimony against each other. So, somebody's going to end up making a deal. And I understand why they have to. I just wish they weren't so sweet. I wish they were not as good, the deals, like, just a little
Yeah.
bit. Because, they're setting a bad precedence. Although they want people to turn on each other, it makes it easier. It saves them money. It saves them time. It makes sure they get a conviction. There's definitely a purpose for it. Maybe even a need, you would say, when you're dealing with such awful people.
And I think the difference in this case, between Bittaker and Norris, I think what Norris got out of it is because Bittaker got the death sentence, and Norris just got 45 years.
Yeah,
So
but he didn't get out, which is
yeah, he
important
ended
to
up
me.
his
Yeah.
parole in 2019, which is when he could have gotten
Hmm.
out, was denied, and he ended up passing
Right.
away in 2020. So
Right. So he didn't get out. So that, like, if he did get out, I think that would have been a miscarriage of justice, based on what happened, because he's getting good graces for turning on his friend. Yes, and I'm not giving him any good graces just because he vomited in front of that van. Like, so
yeah,
what? That just means he just had less of a stomach than the other guy. He still showed up the next day to do the stuff. Like, it's not like he vomited and said, "This isn't for me," and walked away. That's not how the story ended. He wiped his mouth off and got back in the van. Let's be clear. Like, he no saint. He no good guy. Yeah. So,
Miss
ugh.
Cassandra said look up Gerald and Charlene Gallego.
Oh,
No. Yeah,
goodness.
I was just looking them up. I don't recognize these two. It doesn't sound
Hmm.
familiar at all.
No, they kidnapped kids at malls. It was
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, so I don't know everyone. So when I find ones that are like, ooh, I didn't know this one.
Hmm.
I know it's weird to me, like, ooh, there's
Hmm.
something to check.
Okay.
um,
Eh,
huh.
If you have access to Twitter or Discord and you want that audio link, just let me know. Just put, if you're with me on Discord, just put your name right here. Just say you want it, and I'll send you a Discord link to it right now. Well, otherwise,
The
I'll wait
love
to hear
slave
from you.
killers is what Raven
Thank you,
said.
Autistic Show. The Love Slave. Oh, ew. Oh. Hmm.
Or also known as the sex slave murderers.
Did you tell her about the one I dropped earlier? Yes,
No, I didn't.
no, that's gonna
No,
be, yeah.
I'll tell her here when we
Yeah.
get off.
I
Cause
think it's
this
something she's gonna. I just want to, Raven. I want to know the first thing that you say when he tells you about this one I just dropped today. Because when I actually dropped it, I was like, I can't wait to hear what Raven has to say about this. It was the
this
first
is
thing I
yeah.
thought. It wasn't like, what is Jay going to think about this? It was like, I can't wait to hear what Raven's first reaction to this is. I was like, what?
Yeah, I
What?
when I read it, I went, "Are you fucking kidding me? Really?"
Yeah. It was like, well, what'd you expect? You make me read about the toy box killers for Mother's Day weekend. What the heck? I'm just like, oh, but you've been threatening me with these guys for
I
months.
have,
So,
but the
yeah.
one I keep threatening you on, we haven't done yet, and I think after we've done the toolbox killer, I think we can wait a little while before we get to um the toy box killer.
We just did the toy box killers,
No, we
didn't
did
we?
the toolbox killer.
Oh,
There's the toy
oh, this
box
is the
killer.
toolbox, and now there's
Yeah,
the toy. No, that's the one you threaten me with all the time.
the
The
toy
toy
box is
box.
the one. Yeah,
Yes,
is the
you
one I
dangle
threatened you
that in
with.
front of me and go, "Don't go read this yet."
Yeah, no,
Like
no.
wait. Then don't do it. Just wait. It's gonna be lovely, and I've got this sneaky suspicion it's not gonna be lovely at all. I feel not after this one. Like this one was. Oh.
Yeah, yeah. When we get to the toy box, we're gonna leave the toy box for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. So on Monday though we have just updates.
yep,
A
Mondays
new
are updates.
case. Yeah, something different. We get to close a case, we get to look at an old case, and we get to sniff around at a new case. It's gonna be interesting.
So,
Okay.
I don't know what the next true serial is. I gotta flip through my Rolodex of creepers and figure out which one I want to do next.
But there's so many.
There is.
Even this new, every time we get a new link, a source, like the one you just linked today for these
Uh-huh.
guys, if you look at her site, she's got some interesting things there, some interesting captions that you can just like go down. Just different avenues of things.
Mhm.
Crime writers, female still Eastburn murders, the loopholes in the law. Of course, the one you always tell me about, 50 Ways to Murder Your Fictional
Yeah,
Characters.
yeah. 50 ways to murder
Mm-hmm.
your fictional characters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's some interest, like just things you can just like, bounce off of, like
20,
different takes.
23
Yeah.
physical abnormalities of serial killers.
I'm surprised you haven't put me through that one yet.
I
That might
haven't
be it.
seen that one. I'm gonna have to take a
I
look at that one.
I have a feeling that is your next episode, because you've actually told me all the ways I could be a serial killer, and then you taught me all the ways I could kill
You
to
know what?
accomplish that
I
goal.
actually like this one. I think we may have to.
I think I got you.
do
Just yes, look at it. Let's say thank you, Claire.
this. Aaron says, "Is it a real Rolodex? If so, flip it so we can hear." No, it's my internal Rolodex.
I had one of those. Mine was so long, like literally, like I had one of those like really long ones that fits like the whole side of a desk. You know, the old-fashioned one. It wasn't the
Mhm.
round one that goes round and round. It was like long, very old-fashioned. Now I'm dating myself. Look at it.
Yeah, I might have to look through this again. I might have to read through this because I kind
You
of
know,
like this. This is
yeah.
actually a good.
I thought you would
It's
like
actually
it,
a
Jay.
pretty.
It
It's
was
actually a
fascinating.
pretty good article here.
All right, I'm not going to read it. I'm going to let you do that one
Yeah.
for that, and we'll do that for your show. Well, as you build up my gonna be a serial killer, which is your goal to turn me into a serial killer, I know. Um, as you continue my education on how I will accomplish that goal. But it's so funny. Oh,
So that's all we got today. I hope we
mhm.
didn't disturb you guys too much. I did
Yeah.
want to. One of the reasons I did want to cover the toolbox killers is because um, the it's not going to be very often where we actually cover a pair
Mm-hmm.
of serial killers. Most serial killers that you'll see are singles,
Mm-hmm.
one in one person. It's interesting to look at. Um, Now, unfortunately, with Norris and Bittaker, there's not a lot of backstory to them.
No,
Uh,
they're just straight out
yeah,
sickos. Straight and but here's the interesting hook on this one that gets me. Everybody knew it.
yeah,
Everybody knew it was coming. Like they knew. There's no way. I mean, except for the unsuspecting public, they didn't know it. But the prison system did. The law enforcement did. They've been dealing with them for years. Come on. Like this guy. Mm.
I do
And
think
mm.
coming up, we're gonna have to tackle one of Claire's favorites.
What's that? One of Claire's
One of
favorites.
Claire's favorites.
Here we go. Well, I have two that you know of. Which one is it?
The cannibal
Dahmer.
Dahmer.
We're going for Dahmer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I have a thing for that guy. Yeah, I do, because like it happened when I was just getting interested in this, and it was like he looked so normal. Like I could have dated that guy. Like what? Like it was very personal to me because I watched it unfold real time. Like, well, not real time, but like
hmm
back in, you know what I mean? Like I could get it. Like it wasn't that old. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, it was like everything I saw about him was like I didn't. Nobody would have saw that coming. Not like these guys. There were no psychological profiles on the man saying he's going to eat his neighbors, but we'll just let him out. It wasn't like that. And
Yeah.
for those of you who's worrying about being desensitized, I really don't think that's the word. I think we get to a place when we address this kind of stuff all the time, that we just accept it as part of the world. We don't make it acceptable as it should be, but we just know it exists. You know what I mean?
hmm
So you get to a place in your brain where you know these things are here, and so they do need to be looked at. But in no way do you get to that point where you make it that it's acceptable that it happens, or that it's acceptable that it did happen.
Yeah.
And so you're not truly desensitized. If you get to that point where you don't give a crap to what happened to anybody, or you don't um actually have a thought about them, that family, or even it doesn't have to be overly emotional. I don't expect everybody crying and, anything like that, because we're rational now. We're looking at it. You have a passion for true crime for a reason. But the only reason that I'm actually bothering to say this is because my own reaction to this killing, and my own reactions when we have children involved in other killings. You can look at it as the facts and everything. You just don't make it acceptable. That's all. It doesn't mean that it's you're desensitized to it or anything. Just because you can read it or look at it or even analyze it. You know what I mean, Jay?
Mm-hmm.
It's just, yeah. Juju, you worked with a murderer? First of all, fascinating. I need to know how you found out they were a murderer. What kind of murder they did? How long you worked with that? Juju. Juju. Like, oh, we need to know. Deets. And thank you. She ate dinner while we did this. We actually covered this with some decorum. I'm proud of us, Jay. Because these guys were like pretty disgusting. Yeah.
Give you guys a sense of in the decade of the 1980s, 2,670 total serial murders in that decade. Roughly 1/5 took place in California.
Uh-huh. Damn, that's a big number.
Mm-hmm.
Juju, we need to talk. Like, what name? I gotta figure out what name. Are you in the Discord? And if you are, what is your name in there? Because there are many. Please don't be upset with me that I don't remember. If you are in there, because we need to talk about this co-worker of yours. I want you to tell me everything. I can't wait. I don't think I've ever worked with a killer that I know of. Oh, you're not in the. Well, you're welcome to join, but you can find me on Twitter or Instagram.
So, all right, everybody. Well, we'll wrap this up. I know Claire's got a stream coming up in just under a half hour, so
yes,
let her go so she can get to do that.
If you're interested in Black Mirror, that'll be over there at 9:30. But otherwise, we will see you on Monday for another True Serial with Jay, and we're going to have a trifecta for that one.
Then that's at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, back at normal time. Yeah.
This week. So, all right, everybody. Thank you for coming. As always, take care of yourself. Take care of your loved ones.
Mm-hmm. I do have an email, Sandy. Yes, I do. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye. No outro because I'm